Hello and welcome to the Gamers Academy YouTube channel. My name is Outlandish. I played this game competitively for 4 years, but decided to retire recently, become a coach, and partner up together with Gamers Academy to provide you guys education content to make you the best players you want to be. If you want to book me or one of my colleagues for individual coaching sessions, you can book us on gamersmindsacademy.com. You can find the homepage in the description below. On top of that, you can use this code to save up to 10% for the first session you will book with us. In this episode, we will talk about the 12.11 patch. Will be 3 different videos to review the patch because it's really big, one of the biggest patches we have in League of Legends history. So today we will only focus on the champion buffs and how it will affect them in solo queue and competitive. All of that in the upcoming video. As already said in the intro, today we will talk about the 12.11 patch, one probably of the biggest patches we have in League history. A lot of champions got buffed and got nerfed, a lot of items got changed. That's why we're doing 3 different episodes about the patch, and today we will exclusively talk about the champion buffs. I think the whole patch is obviously a reaction to the durability patch we had on 12.10. I said already in the past videos about it that because of the HP difference and the shield and healing difference with 12.10, a lot of champions will get changed, the meta will change up, and that's why they need to adjust a lot of champions. For example, a lot of fighters, skirmishers, and assassins in early game struggled with the patch because they didn't have that much kill threat anymore in early game. That's why they're probably looking to buff a few of these champions. But they buffed a lot of different champions. We will go through it and talk a little bit about it. The first champion we're talking about is Aphios. I think buffing her as a good answer to the current state we have currently on bot lane. We will talk about, for example, Seraphine on bot lane in a different video, but in general, we have a lot of utility champions on bot side. We have a lot of Ezreals, we have a lot of Zaya's, not like that much hyper carries anymore. Aphios used to be like a good answer, for example, into Lucian Nami in the combination with Lulu. Aphios was being picked to neutralize bot side, and now giving her a little buff with the passive attack speed and the passive lethality is a good direction for her to get back into the meta. There was for sure a place already for her, but they're buffing her because she wasn't that popular anymore on the last few patches. The second champion that's getting buffed is Caitlyn. I think this just goes in the same direction. Caitlyn struggling a lot with like the durability patch because she was a lane bully, a champion that played for platings, played for kill pressure and priority on bot side. And since we have the durability patch and a lot of like utility champions on bot side, a lot of like stable laning phases with Senna and stuff like Ezreal, Caitlyn suffered a lot from that. So they're looking to buff her, which is kind of interesting that they're like a little bit nerfing her early game, but like making her stronger late game. But I think the direction Caitlyn needs to go is that she needs to be more dominant again in the laning phase because, as I said, she struggled a lot in the durability patches, especially like in the last patches. Caitlyn wasn't that popular anymore in solo queue and competitive. They're nerfing like her Q damage ratio and the Q mana in early game, which I think isn't like the smartest direction for her. I think they should like buff her early game and her late game because she's like Caitlyn was always known for being like really strong early game, really strong late game, and she had like this mid game problem, but now she's getting even a little bit nerfed in early game, which I don't think is the right direction she needs to go. I think she needs to get buffed in every stage of the game right now because Caitlyn isn't that popular right now. It is struggling a lot against these neutralizing lanes. The third champion they're buffing is Aria. I think there was like always this meme like better nerf Aria. I think Aria is like a really really nice champion because she's like really niche champion. It's not something that you can blind pick. Something not every player is able to play. It's just like really niche. And for example, good into stuff like GP, into Jace, into Gnar. For example, Aria was like really strong in that regard, but they're buffing her because she wasn't that strong on the last patch as well. Like she has like a lot of kill threat in the lane. She wants to like manipulate a wave state to like be able to like decide when she wants to skirmish in early game. She can like dash and all in the enemies pretty easily with her jumps and with her ultimate from level 6 onwards. So they're buffing that as well. She gets more Q healing, which is like obviously in reaction to the healing nerfs we had on 12.10. So that trying to adjust the healing and shielding on every champion or the most champion possible. In Aria, they're doing the same, more healing and more 80 percentage, and like the cooldown of the E is going down, which gives her more like all in or more all-in potential in early game, because less cooldown you have on your E, the more all-ins you can like achieve, because you most of the time like look to start with Q and then like look to hit your E on the enemies to have like the most successful all-in. So they're buffing that, which I think is a good direction for Aria, even though I think in a competitive environment that Aria had already a place. As said, she was really niche. She wasn't like a champion that you can just blind pick and 1v9 on it. You need to have like a specific place for her. Now they're buffing her early game, which I think is a decent direction. The next three buffs actually are like making me really happy as a ex-jungle main. First of all, we are buffing Gragas, which I think is really, really good, because Gragas doesn't have like the best standing in the last patches, and he should profit from the durability patch, especially on top side, because with his sustain, he can heal up a lot and can have like a successful laning phase. I think like on tank Gragas on top lane might have like a decent place right now on the meta, because he's profiting from the durability changes. But what they're doing right now is that they're buffing his damage spells. He's getting more AP ratio on his Q, less cooldown on his Q and E. That makes his like his trading way easier and way stronger. I think this gives him again more reliability as an AP champion, especially like in jungle. It was always a bit weird in the last few patches or past months actually to find a good item build for him, because like we were dominating a lot with tank jungle meta. Now you have like a more carry-ish jungle meta, and like in both places Gragas wasn't that good, because like he was really bad on the current mythic items. But in combination with the item changes, which we will talk in the third episode, Gragas jungle as a full AP ratio could be actually a good option. The second change is Lee Sin change. I expect this buff before Worlds, not now. It's just a really small buff. I don't think it changes a lot. He gets more base AD, 2 base AD more, and a little bit more damage on his Q. But I think like Lee Sin isn't that strong anymore, because like we're having a lot of full clear junglers currently in the meta. Stuff like Shyvana is coming up. Stuff like Karthus is really strong currently. Lilia. Lee Sin is always struggling a lot against these full clear power farming junglers, because he's relying on early game success, and the durability patch is exactly against that. Like the durability patch wants to have like scaling longer games, and Lee Sin is not really the best champion when it comes down to late mid game or late game in general. So the buffing is early game. I think that you need to adjust even more. I was thinking maybe about like buffing his E damage, AoE damage, so he has a better clear in early game. But for now, they're going in the direction to give him a small buff, which make every Lee Sin main happy. He's for sure playable, but you need to snowball on him a lot, and this is a big risk we have in the current meta, and that's why we don't see him that much anymore in the competitive environment. The third buff is like making me so happy. I'm just smiling. Nunu is a champion that is like really, really niche. There are like a few one tricks on the server that are really, really annoying to play against, because they're just perma ganking. And same like kind of the identity Lee Sin has. Nunu is a champion that is like a really gank heavy champion, not the best full clearing champion, which means that he's in this whole context of the meta we have right now, not the best solution. But Nunu has for sure some reliability in solo queue, because like you can cheese gank over and over again. And now he's like healing is getting buffed against minions and against champions, which is again like the same identity and the same idea we have with Irea with the healing buffs, is because like the healing in general got nerfed. So this is a good option for both champions to like have a stronger early game and more reliability over the game. But I think this is still not enough to make like Nunu like really a good champion in a competitive environment, because like her kit and her playstyle is just not fitting, especially when we have like these long scaling games right now. The next buff is actually, for me, really surprising, because I think like Rakan is one of the best supports we have currently. Rakan is being played a lot in a competitive environment together with something like Nautilus, Renata, Leona. Rakan has reliable engage, has a lot of mobility. That's why he's like love to be played, especially for example in the combination together with Xayah, which had like a higher priority in the drafts as well in the last few patches. So they're buffing again like the same as Nunu Aria, his healing, which got attacked by the last patch. His cooldown W and his E mana and shield powers getting raised, which like allows him to have like even stronger early game. And I was just thinking about it, since like the W cooldowns getting reduced. I don't think this will happen, but Rakan was one time even played in mid lane by Perkz. I was just thinking like just based on these numbers, as you have like if you hit your Q, you have more healing and like less cooldown on your W. Zulu might be an option for some like Rakan mid lane one tricks to have a stronger laning phase, but this is for sure just like in reaction again to the durability patch and give him more in a better laning phase in a better early game. The next few buffs are actually really interesting because they're like attacking champions we didn't see that much anymore. For example, Ryze. Ryze was like pretty popular in the spring split because like he fit really well in the dynamic of pushing out mid lane and roaming into side lane, but he got his value dropped a lot recently. That's why they're looking to buff his E damage and reducing his E mana, which gives him more wave clear opportunities in the early game, and giving him more scaling as well because he has a better AP ratio on his E spell as well. So this is a really, really nice buff for Ryze because he could probably find again his place in the mid lane to have like this like push and roam identity, and working together really well with the jungler together was really something that was really nice to play around Ryze. Even though I think that in a competitive environment he was a bit overhyped. If you watch your Masters, for example, he had a really, really high pick rate but wasn't that successful in it. But in just in general, what the idea brings and what champion as an playstyle brings with it, it's actually a really nice champion because he can generate a lot of map pressure, a lot of dives, and a lot of map control with his early game laning phase. But as I said, with the durability patch, stuff like early game skirmishes and early game dives are getting reduced a lot because the people are just way tankier. That's why like it's really hard for Ryze to find a good direction and a good place for him. But we will see how it develops. Still don't think that he's really strong against stuff like Taliyah and Taliyah and Ahri. He could struggle against these champions still a lot. It's hard for him to keep up the priority at some point. But like the buff's already in a good direction, and I think it's pretty clear in which direction they want to go. They want to buff like more again like these early game champions that can take over the game and give them more chances to have like more reliability in the durability patch. The next buff is Samira. She gets a little bit more AD growth and more damage ratio on her Q. I think this is just like a comfort buff. Samira had for sure already some presence in the competitive environment in solo queue as well. She's a really, really strong lane bully. She can like contest and look to have a lot of kill threat in early game laning phase, especially in combination with something like Nautilus or Leona. Just to be like, she's like just basically AD Katarina, looking for resets, looking for like these really hype team fights, having her giving her control in the laning phase with more damage, with better AD ratio. I think still it's really hard for Samira to find a place right now in the meta because, as I said, like multiple times that like we have like a lot of neutralizing lanes on bot side, not that much fist fighting anymore. We will the evolution of bot lane right now is going more towards to like something like Senna, Seraphine, stuff like that. So for me, it's really difficult to define if like Samira will have like a better place again in solo queue with that buff. I don't think so, but I think this is just I think it's a nice comfort buff. I don't think it changes too much. Same stuff goes to Sylas. Sylas as a champion, one of my most favorite champions the whole game, just because of his ultimate, which gives him so much power and so much flexibility. As the champion is getting buffed, his mana costs are getting reduced, and his healing is getting raised, and his cooldown is getting reduced. Just like again, like just the idea of, okay, we nerfed healing in the 12.10 patch. We need to adjust the champions to it, otherwise they're suffering too much. Sylas, for me, a champion that has for sure a good identity in the current meta, especially like when we see something like Twisted Fate as a counter pick, but Sylas for sure doesn't have that strength anymore that he used to be. He was like picked a lot as a blind pick, for example, like some like months ago, where he had like his peak as a champion. Right now he's more niche, which I think is really good for a champion, and he can be played, for example, into Twisted Fate to just match his ultimate and match his laning phase. I personally really like Sylas because as a jungler, Sylas is a really potent skirmish champion in the early game, and he can for sure create like really good 2v2 scenarios, and I think this is again like a good buff, a good adjustment to the healing nerfs they did in the patch ago. The next buff is for me a big question mark because I think Tahm Kench has a really, really a strong place already in the meta, because Senna is just like being overused a lot in drafts, and Tahm Kench as pairing with her is always really good, especially when you want to have some disengage in your comp. His passive on-hit damage is getting buffed, and his healing is getting buffed, which is again like just a reaction to the last patch, and his shielding is getting buffed on his ultimate as well, which like again is adjustment to the patch, but I don't think that Tahm Kench needed it really, because Tahm Kench was really already in a really good spot in specific comps. So I think they're probably just overusing this identity. Okay, we need to buff every champion that has healing and shielding just to adjust it to the current patch. But let's see. I think this maybe gives them too much power right now. Taric as a next champion, I think, is one of these champions that you don't see a lot in this meta, and you probably won't see anyway, even though he's getting buffed. His healing is again getting buffed, and but what's really interesting is like a stun duration from 1.25 to 1.5, which gives him a stronger early game laning phase. Like as soon as you're hitting your stun, you have like a lot of kill threat in the lane. But the problem Taric in general has is that Taric is just for sure not a good blind pick support. He is really niche. He needs to have like a comp where a lot of people are engaging into him. So his ultimate and his like front to back team fighting, it gets online, or you have a champion that is like just giving him the opportunity to like use his E to create team fights. So Taric is a really difficult champion to put into a good draft scenario, but for sure on red side, for example, Taric on as last pick could be something interesting. Or if you're playing in solo queue, you see like a lot of champions engaging into you, and you can neutralize that with Taric really well. So I don't think that like the heal change will do that much. I just think the stun duration is more interesting because it gives him more kill threat in lane. So let's see in which direction this goes, but I think Taric is just struggling a lot against these champions on bot side that are outranging him, stuff like Seraphine Senna, so let's see about that. Next buff, I think a lot of people will be sad about, it's the Tryndamere buff. I think we had like a lot of months where Tryndamere was like in the past really strong on top side and on the mid lane as a flex pick, but a same identity as the last champions. They want to buff his healing, and reducing his ultimate cooldown is I think just a bonus on top of it, because his ultimate, you didn't put points anyway. You didn't care that much about the cooldown, because the cooldown you are generating from the items. Now you're having 10 seconds less cooldown on your ultimate, which is, I guess, a great bonus, but it doesn't change that much the problem of the champion, which is like Tryndamere is like, especially in early game, a champion that can surprise the enemy laners a lot, because like you have a really flip playstyle. Like your crit on your passive is not really reliable, and but if you crit a lot of times in early game, you can like just have like a really good fake laning phase, because it's not really reliable. And that regard, that's why a lot of people don't dislike him as a champion, because like he can like basically one shot you on level 2, and there's sequences where he does nothing on level 2 if he doesn't crit. So but they're buffing this champion. I think this is something positive for everyone. Trick. The last champion's getting buffed is Xin Zhao, a champion that dropped a lot in value in the past months. Same kind of scenario like in Lee Sin, even though they're not exactly the same. But Xin Zhao is not the best power farming clearing jungler as well, which means that Xin Zhao doesn't have the best reliability as a jungler right now, but is for sure still being played in solo queue and some competitive matchups if you need just a really strong early game skirmisher that allows the teammates to scale up. And Xin Zhao is one of these champions that like just brings in this aggressiveness in early game, and their buffing is healing ratio as well from 7 to 10%, but they're buffing his W damage as well, which gives him more early game strength. 10 more damage on his W for sure has an impact on his early skirmishing, but doesn't have that much impact on the current meta we are having right now. But I think like general like the next few patches will like change a lot, because they realize that like early game is getting weaker and weaker because of the durability patch, and they want to bring more like more fun, more skirmishes again into the meta. But let's see how the direction goes. For sure right now we can see a clear identity right is going with the 12.11 patch. Make sure that you comment on the Riot Vlogs tweet as per usual on Twitter. Give them your opinion so they can like maybe do some adjustments, some hot fixes if the community is together reacting on something that's too broken. Just to summarize that, yeah, like the identity is pretty clear. They want to buff healing and shielding for most champions, but I see some opportunities for early game champions to have a little comeback, something like Lee Sin, Gragas, something like Xin Zhao, just buffing them to give them more, again, a better identity in the early game with the current meta. So, but we need to check that in the next upcoming patches. Thanks for watching this episode on the Gamers Academy YouTube channel about the topic 12.11 patch rundown. We would appreciate if you like, subscribe, and activate the bell on our channel, or leave us a comment, some feedback about the content we are creating, or discuss the patch with me together in the comments. If you would like to discuss the topic with me or one of my colleagues in depth, you can join our official Gamers Academy Discord server. You can find the link in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye.